Is it just me, or does that seem to be, like, the new design decision from modern, like, AAA studios? Is like, let's see if we can make this as gray as possible.
As brown as possible.
Let's look at all of the amazing shades of brown that we can get in this game. But the time that I really started to see it become more of a mainstream was really after 5th edition, and seeing it being streamed, podcasts being put up on it, and a lot of actual discussion being done about it. And part of that was indeed third-party content, because there's so many that I want to bury. There's just so many. I'm working on my every game I play from 2022 list, and it feels like half my list is the scrap bin. Hey Alex, we made it to 2023.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought we would have all died years ago.
I might have already done so.
Oh, well, perfect. This is probably our purgatory.
I'm a ghost now.
We already did that episode.
We did. I think we did. Yeah, I remember 2019, and then 2020, which has pretty much been going on for 3 years now. So, you know, we're in it. We're in it. Third version of 2020. So
we're in it to win it this year.
We are in it to win it. And so we thought that we would start the year off for Total Pebble Knockdown a little saltier. But anyway, I am Nathan.
And I am Alex, and welcome to our show, podcast, depending how you're listening and reviewing this.
However you are absorbing this, it is indeed Total Pebble Knockdown, and let's get right into it. There was something that we were talking about at the end of the year that I wanted to get into with you a little bit more. Alex, you got some hands-on time with Diablo 4, didn't you?
A little, yeah. I got the beta invite, the open beta, not open beta, I guess it was closed beta, but it was the endgame closed beta. They wanted to probably A, stress test, and B, just get feedback.
What was the process like to become part of the beta?
Opt in with Blizzard.
Oh,
and then get an email if they pick you.
Oh, okay.
Essentially, my email said that due to the time you spent Diablo 3, which was quite a bit,
yeah,
we've selected you to do this closed beta.
Oh, okay. So you could apply, but then they had to tell you.
Yeah, you can opt in for any betas for any of Blizzard's stuff, and they'll just send you, like, hey, you want to be in this? And you can be like, yeah, I do, let's go. And then, obviously, I couldn't talk about it during, because they have a whole NDA type stuff, and it's just like, yeah, don't record this, and it's all got the watermarks all over it, so you can't, like, if you use it, they'll know you used it, kind of stuff.
But that period has passed now,
yes.
And you're able to actually talk about it.
Sure. I don't think they watch this podcast anyway, so who cares?
Yeah, and if they do, that would only get us exposure.
and lawsuits, but who cares? Who cares? But yeah, so they have announced their release date for Diablo 4 in June, I think June 6th of 2023.
Yeah.
So 6-6, because add one more 6 and you have hell numbers, obviously.
They'll do it at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, maybe 6 minutes and 6 seconds.
6 minutes, 6 seconds. On the 6th day of 6. Yeah.
So yeah, it was, so there was no story. You had, like, the opening cutscene, like, the launch, and then you had, you didn't have all the characters. You could play, I think I played a necromancer, barbarian, and druid.
Okay.
I think were the ones I tried.
How many classes were available?
I think there was, an Amazon.
Okay.
And then there was I think a paladin.
So basically it's the Diablo 2 classes?
Kind of. It's similar. I think it was a rogue instead of an Amazon, and it was just...
Oh, okay.
I don't remember, because I didn't play them all, but I tried the barbarian, the druid, and the necromancer.
Okay. Okay, great. So that's...
wanted to see how different classes worked.
Yeah, and those seem pretty far away from each other. So that's good. So I guess the question that I have is, are any of these classes that you had played in previous Diablo games?
Yeah, I played Necromancer in both Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. Got the DLC for the Necromancer in Diablo 3. Obviously, there was no Druid in Diablo 3, so I didn't play that. I did play a ton of the Druid in Diablo 2, so obviously that's why. And Barbarian, you've played in every Diablo game that I've played, because Barbarians are just fun to just murder everything.
Yes. Very good. So, out of curiosity, in comparison, when we're looking at the classes that are in Diablo 4, what is different or similar to playing them in that game than they were in the previous titles?
Well, that's a harder question, because the way the game is played is not the same way as you would do in previous titles.
Explain?
Alright, so there's a couple different things. I'll start with the first big noticeable difference. Is that Diablo 2, Diablo 3 are completely games that you can play offline. I believe you can play Diablo 3 offline. You can play it solo.
Yep, yeah.
Or you can play co-op with friends.
Okay.
Diablo 4 is, unless the beta was different, not that experience. It is online. You're playing in a shared overworld with other players. You can still make a party and join people for that, but you're playing in a world that is shared by however many other players are on whatever they use, servers, realms, whatever.
Okay.
Think of how when you played World of Warcraft, if you were in the city, you could see other players there because they're there too.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that.
So, or if you're somewhere else in the world and there happen to be other people doing an event in that area, you could do the event with them.
Oh.
So it is not a solo experience at all.
Yes.
If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I don't think you would have your closed beta be like this and have your sold game have an experience. Like, if it has a solo ability on the Diablo floor, that would be much better in my opinion. Typically, when I play Diablo games, I either want to play by myself or with a couple of friends. I don't really want to go try and find a boss and have to wait for them to respawn because someone else just murdered them.
Right. That's good to know.
So that is a major difference between previous installments of Diablo and Diablo 4. Pretty major change, especially if that's...
Yeah. Do we have any indication that there will be a solo experience?
I haven't looked into it, to be honest with you.
Okay. I haven't seen anything about it. That's the reason, because they haven't really been talking about it. I know that there's some people that have been discussing their time with the beta, but I think Blizzard hasn't been sharing a ton of information outside of that. So.
I can't imagine they would offer a solo mode and not have that available for the beta.
You would
Unless they were simply trying to stress test it. In that case, I can guess that, but then you would have the option on your screen to do solo and just have it grayed out for your beta. You know?
Right.
So that is probably the biggest gameplay change.
Okay.
I think that's one of the bigger ones.
Okay.
Secondly, the way you play the game is a little different.
Okay.
You still get your 4 skills as per Diablo. I guess both of them, really. Diablo 2 and 3. You still have your skill bar, the QWERT or whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can select them how you will, but the skill tree is different. I don't even really know. Did you play Grim Dawn a bit?
I did.
And did you play Path of Exile?
I played some of Path Exile.
So you know how
very little, but yes.
It starts at one point with some nodes around it, and then goes to another point with nodes around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that.
Oh.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense for it to just be nebulous like this. Basically, you have to put X amount of points in the first nebula to get the path open to the next one,
right?
And then so on and so forth.
Right.
And then down at the end, you have some ultimate skills kind of deal.
Right. Right.
You know, some big overpowered skills to choose from. The issue I had was that not a lot of the choices were really that attractive to me.
Okay.
doesn't matter which class I was playing.
Right.
Like Diablo 3, you got to be like, cool, I want to use this ability, and I'm going to put this rune on it to make it different.
Sure.
And then maybe you have a legendary that would augment that further based on what the ability, like your legendary effect, has on it.
Sure.
But this one, I was like, none of these abilities really, like, you just put points, like Diablo 2 style, you still put points into those skills so you can upgrade them past, first rank, which is nice. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it's like, all right, well, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna, like, you have core skills and then basic skills and then, like, offensive stuff, but they're all, you can mix and match them, but it didn't really engage that well, I don't think.
Okay. Are there, when we're talking about, like, the nodes, is it, like, several different nodes that go through different kinds of, like, subclass almost abilities stuff? Sort of like in 2, where they had, like, a few different, like, skill trees, but...
No,
like
it's just, like, one node to begin with the stuff around it, and you select from that, and it's not like you pick different trees.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's all in one.
It's not like poison, and then bone, and then... summoning. It's just like, here's your nodes, pick which skills you want here. But then you've got, again, your like core or basic skills, and the ways that they're tagged for skills matters. And they did not tutorialize it that great, in my opinion.
Right.
So like, okay, my core skills are the ones that generate my resource, I suppose.
Okay.
And then, okay, what's a basic skill then? Is that just one you can spam? Does it cost nothing? It doesn't generate? What is it? So, each of the classes have their own resources and ways to gain and spend them.
Right.
Each of them had their own little gimmick for a specialty, I guess I want to call it. I forget what they use for the term. So the barbarian, for instance, instead of just equipping one weapon or maybe a weapon in each hand, you could equip a bunch of different weapons on the barbarian.
Oh.
Which was neat. It was like you equip one-handed, and you can equip another one-handed or a shield, and you can do a two-handed or a slashing weapon and a two-handed like bludgeoning weapon, and different skills can use different weapons.
Oh.
And for that you could select which weapon you'd want to use. If you had multiple, that would be qualified for the skill. So that was neat. And then using different weapons, you could raise your mastery with those, and then gain like a perk you can choose to select to have your character have that perk going, kind of deal.
Oh.
So that was neat.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Okay.
So, and then you could have like, okay, well, this attack ability I've got uses this weapon, and this ability uses a different weapon. So that was cool for the barbarian. I thought that was neat. It did not really tell you right away that's what it was doing. You kind of had to figure it out, because again, tutorial wasn't completely there or great. This is the end game. They could have taught you stuff.
Right, exactly. But
on the other side, the druid, with their abilities and their shape-shifting abilities, for instance, you didn't just gain a form of shapeshift.
Oh.
It was, this ability is a werewolf ability. So when you use it, you temporarily transform into a werewolf until you use a different ability. So you could go werewolf, and then suddenly into a werebear, and then suddenly out of shapeshift altogether. Which I didn't prefer. I was like, I would like to just be a werewolf right now, thanks. Let me be a werewolf and do all these things in werewolf form.
Yeah. Interesting. Is there just the werewolf for the druid, or do they have other
there was
forms?
werebear too, and I think some summoning as well. I've got a cat now.
Yeah, you didn't turn into a cat. The cat came extra. That's a... Are you sure that's not a were-lion?
It might be.
Were-tiger? That's a were-tiger. But that's okay. That's the one that they didn't show in the...
This is the shape-shifting form they didn't show in the beta.
That's probably going to be extra. You'll get extras for that. So there's that. Necromancer, though, because I always like the Necromancer. Differences between the older versions of how they did necromancy and this one? Do you still raise corpses?
Yeah, you can raise corpses still. You can get skeleton minions. You can get a golem as a specialty. You can have different selections as your specialty. You can be like, oh, I want to raise this type of skeleton. Maybe I want skeletal warriors, skeletal mages, and maybe I think the last one was skeletal archers. I don't remember.
Yeah, sure.
And then it was like, okay, well, now you can select to either make it so they have more damage or more defense, or like they have each of those skills, and each had like 3 options for it that you could do. And like the third one was like, you don't want to summon any of them, and you would rather have a bonus to like your defense skills or resistances instead of having these skeletons active. So
Excellent.
that was interesting. Did you play the necromancer in Diablo 3?
No, unfortunately I didn't, because that was the add-on content that
it felt really similar to that, and the skills felt really similar to that. It didn't feel as good as it, honestly.
Right. Well, in 3, I think the thing that took me out of 3 was the idea that you were just automatically gaining all of your skills and abilities. Like, it just unlocked at levels. There were no skill trees or anything anymore to specifically build out your character.
Yeah. See, I didn't mind that in 3 so much because it gave you access to everything instead of having to pick and choose, and then you could experiment.
Sure.
Which was nice. Instead of, say, this way, which means you'd have to like if you wanted to respec, you could do that. It probably would cost money. I don't know if it did in the beta. But then if you want to play around with the skills, you have to like refund your skill points, then put them all back in the ways you want and tinker around with where you want points allocated to.
I see. Okay.
So.
Well, alright. Now, the actual, I guess, okay, it's the world that we're in here. I'll just talk about the basic aesthetics here. How does it look? How does it sound?
Looks like Diablo.
Okay.
Little grim, little dark.
Okay.
Again, it's a top-down isometric, so that's nothing new.
It would
or
be kind of
different.
weird if it wasn't, so.
Yeah. So it's still your top-down. It's still point and everything. Click to do whatever. That's all the same. Graphics are fine, if a little boring, I guess I would call it. Everything's very drab.
Yeah.
Like, even Diablo 3, they were like, oh, this is so bright and colorful.
Whimsyshire is the
yeah,
whole response to
Whimsyshire.
that.
But like, this is just like drab.
Is it just me, or does that seem to be like the new design decision for modern like AAA studios? Is like, let's see if we can make this as gray as possible,
as brown as possible.
Let's look at all of the amazing shades of brown that we can get in this game.
Yeah.
Why use a color palette? We're just going to have the one color and have it everywhere.
Yeah, I feel like it didn't need to be as like graphically superior to Diablo 3, for instance, which is a lot more cartoonish. It didn't need to be as like more realistic. I don't think that benefits it in any way.
Okay.
Like, it's not hyper realistic, thank God, but like, I don't think they needed to put that much effort into that. I don't think it benefits or detracts at all.
Now, one thing I was looking at when I saw some of the, like, early release stuff when they announced the game is, like, I saw the barbarian going, like, jumping off of cliffs and stuff like that from one level to another and stuff. And I thought to myself, oh, well, that's kind of interesting that they're trying to utilize the environment with making it more interactive than it has been in previous games. Did you encounter any of that when you were?
Yeah,
in the game?
there's spots where you can be prompted to climb up a ledge.
Oh,
or
there's
a ladder
specific
or something
spots
like that.
though.
It's mostly that. I'm sure you can take, if you're on a cliff, I'm sure if you have a jump move, you can, or a teleport move, you can go from point A to point B with an attack.
So
you get mounts now also. There are horses and mounts and stuff because you have a big overworld and players like their mounts.
The thing about mounts is that there's like a double-edged sword with that. Like, one, I love the idea of being able to actually traverse the environment a lot faster. But two, if you have the inclusion of mounts, it usually says that there are large swaths of nothing that you are going to have to traverse over, because we've put nothing there.
Yeah.
It's like we've created this giant world. Now let's get you on a horse or a boat or a vehicle to get you through it as quickly as possible, because there's nothing there.
So it's a lot less linear.
Yeah.
I believe. And I mean, it could be a linear storyline with the actual story. I didn't see any of that, so it could drag you through the world.
Sure.
As per that. But like the end game experience, obviously open world, but it was instead of like here's like a series of connected levels, it was just an open map kind of deal.
Okay.
There are towns, there are multiple towns, multiple towns.
Okay, good.
None of them really felt like they needed to be as big as they were.
Yeah, so, like, I even felt this, though, like, back in Diablo 2 or something with, like, Tristram. Like, Tristram is a fairly large town, or, it's spaced
small
out.
in comparison.
It's small in comparison. That's always good. But, like, at the end of the day, a lot of those towns in Diablo or Diablo-style games will have a lot of buildings that just aren't accessible or anything. They're just kind of there. And then
just set pieces.
Yeah. So you have like the 5 or 6 actual people that you talk to, and then there's just a bunch of other stuff there that you kind of just, I guess, can tool around with. I remember that was like really prevalent when you got to like Throne of Baal and or Lord of Destruction, I should say. Different game.
Loot Ghislaine.
Yep. And then by the time you get to there, that town really doesn't have a lot for you to do.
Yeah. It's like there were just too many vendors for everything. It was like, here's your jewelry vendor, here's your armor vendor, here's your weapon vendor, here's a black, here's a guy who forged your legendaries, here's some for scrolls, here's someone for potions.
Yeah.
It was like, this is unnecessary. Like, give me less vendors and less town, please.
Yes. There could be just like 2 or 3 vendors, or realistically, I've seen some systems where they just have the one person that you shop with.
Yeah. It's like a couple of them are fine, but like this is too many. You have way too many vendors. Your town is too big. I don't know where things are now. It's like I don't want to have to take 3 minutes to wander to this one person to do one thing, and then 2 minutes to go to another person.
Yeah, I think that the system that I'm fine with is, I'm gonna reference my series, but in Borderlands, there's 3 vending machines. And in basically every single one, there's the one that handles like your ammunition and your grenade mods and stuff. There's the one that handles like shields and and class mods and your health potions and stuff. And then there's the one that does the guns. And so when you encounter the vending machines, they're all pretty easily marked, and they're all over the world, and you know what each one of them is supposed to do, for the most part. And that's all you need for shopping. That's all the shopping that has to be done in the game, and they usually are near each other in most towns. So, but then of course the town is also really large, so yeah.
A side note to that was, this obviously isn't going to make it to the final part of the game, but a lot of the voice acting for the people that were saying random lines was just text-to-speech.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, they'll fix that before the end.
They'll fix that. That'll be a thing. But it was just like, wow, this is terrible.
I've encountered that in a lot of, especially game preview stuff. Even Everspace 2, which was a very good game, but you can see like when they got into later content, they're like, they even made a note, this is text-to-speech. We're getting these dialogue things, voice acted later. But yeah, obviously Blizzard's going to do the voice acting for that. The thing I think I'm most worried about when it comes to Diablo 4, and maybe you can either make my fears warranted or allay them, but when I tried playing Diablo Immortal, it became pretty obvious that the microtransactions, the loot boxes, the way that they built the game was to try and make it a cash machine that would constantly spit out as much money as possible.
So I believe they had said they're not going to be any pay-to-win stuff in Diablo 4. I'm pretty sure they said that.
Okay.
That being said, there is an in-game shop with cosmetics and the type of things like that. So I don't know how aggressive they're going to be pushing that. I'm not sure. I didn't interact with any of it because I don't care about in-game shops 99% of the time.
On the one hand, when it comes to the cosmetic thing, I understand that, like, that's an opt-in and it's not mechanical. On the other hand, though, after Fortnite, I've become acutely aware that that's still a really, really lucrative framework for companies.
Have you heard of League of Legends?
I have. Never played it, but...
Yeah, well, the game is free. and that's because they don't need to make you pay for it. The skins are what they make money on.
Right, exactly. And this actually, they've done pieces, I think even Game Theory talked about this, but the idea is that it is status symbols, and, especially when you have maybe younger or impressionable children, they really want the status symbol of the tomato person costume that you can play in the Fortnite specifically. They want those, or the branded opportunities. So that, Avengers was really heavy into that too, doing all these skins and doing promotions with other companies to buy their product so that you could get the special skins for the different heroes. So I think it's kind of a workaround. I appreciate it when you see some games. I know that we weren't like huge fans of like Code Vein, but one of the things Code Vein did was they had all cosmetic options that were readily available at like it just either one in game or ready out of the gate. There was no microtransactions for any of them.
There was a couple DLC you could get that had cosmetic options.
There were DLCs, but they also had content to them.
Yes,
yeah,
they did.
They did. When there were a lot of them, even some of my very, very like Borderlands 3, where there were specifically some costumes that you paid for separately, which was unnecessary, completely unnecessary. I'll see how long that lasts, because I lived through Fallout 76, and originally that store was only going to be cosmetics and skins and stuff until there's like the refrigerator that makes it so that your food doesn't just deteriorate, and the endless medical supply boxes or whatever, or free repair kits you could buy. It's like, then it becomes more lucrative for them. I really hope that it's not Fallout 76. Please don't do Fallout 76.
So I did want to say the one thing, even while playing it and after playing the beta for Diablo 4, I have a comparison for you if you would like to try a game that is like that.
Okay.
Remember that one time I talked about Lost Ark?
Yes.
Yeah, go play that, and you're gonna get what Diablo 4 feels like.
Ah, okay.
Almost down to a T at this point.
Okay, I might have to tool around with that at some point.
Yeah,
and
it's
see.
the same kind of overworld with shared experience between players. I don't know about the story. Obviously, it's going to be different because it's Korean versus Western. So the story will be vastly different, I'm sure. But the gameplay feels very similar, and it looks very similar. Like the way you mount your horse and ride your horse and can get off your horse in combat, and all of that just feels like it feels a lot like even while I was playing it and participating in their chat, I was like, this kind of feels like Lost Ark, which I played 100 hours of. So
right. You liked Lost Ark for the most part.
I mean, I did. I put like 140 hours in it.
Right.
But
so there was that.
But it was also free.
That's true. And they're going to make you pay for Diablo 4.
At this point, I've decided that I'm probably not getting Diablo 4 upon release. Maybe if it goes on sale, depending how it does and if I'm interested in it still.
Right.
But currently, not interested in Diablo 4. There is nothing the game can offer me that I can't get for free with Lost Ark.
Yeah.
The only thing that it would offer me is the story from Blizzard following the Diablo franchise.
Sure.
But even that, after Diablo 3, is kind of like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that Blizzard has bad storytelling, and they can usually make some pretty interesting, rich world-building experiences, but I'm not gonna say it's, like, winning any awards for its storylines.
Not usually.
It's the general story of Diablo is a big demon came back to the world, and you need to kill it now. Like, it's pretty much it. It's pretty much the whole storyline in fits and spurts as we go through. Like, the fallout from one game initiates the next, which initiates the next, but still, but that's okay. So really at this point, not looking to dig back into it, no real desire to? Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Not at this point. If I want to play Diablo, I'll probably play Diablo 3. I have Diablo 2 remastered, or
resurrected, yeah.
So I can play that if I want to, but like at this point, like Diablo 4 doesn't interest me. Even the way they did legendaries was weird.
Really?
Like, you could craft your own legendaries, but like the system was not explained at all because beta. Why do you need tutorials, I guess? It was just kind of weird.
Yeah.
Everything just felt weird. Again, you can also play something like Grim Dawn and get a similar experience in some of the sense, so.
Okay, and I did play some of Grim Dawn, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that almost makes it sound a little bit like another game that I don't want to talk about, so. But, did you ever play Anthem?
No.
Okay, then that's probably, probably for the better. Anyway, I didn't hate it as much as some people, but not recommended. Anyway, alright, so I guess we're just gonna have to find out what happens with Diablo 4. I'm wondering out there, if anyone is listening, if you are excited about Diablo 4, or if you happen to get your hands on it during the closed beta, if you had any thoughts on it, please let us know in the comments.
Obviously, this is my personal opinion. I'm not speaking for everyone. There are a lot of people who played it and were enjoying it. Overall, gameplay was okay. Nothing to really write home about, though.
Right. You probably expected a little bit more innovation considering how long it's been since the last Diablo came out.
I expected it to be better. It was rather bland,
Yeah.
just like its art style.
Nor, however, were your expectations particularly high.
You know, coming out of Diablo 3, which I had played a ton of,
Yeah.
you know, I was expecting something I'd probably enjoy about as much.
That's
so again,
encouraging.
yeah, if you got to play in the closed beta or even before that or after that, feel free to let us know what you thought. I am obviously, this is my own opinion, and you cannot have that too, and that's great. I thought it felt like a Lost Ark clone in the Blizzard style.
So there's our hot take for the day. That's our salt take. Diablo 4, the Lost Ark clone. Oh boy, that's a title. That's a title right there. So, Alex, I don't know if you're aware, but we do have a tendency to talk about a little game called Dungeons & Dragons on this show.
Once in a great while.
Okay. Well, there's been some chatter through the interwebs.
There's been a lot of chatter as of the last day.
And through like some third-party and dev teams that they're going on. Anyway, in a nutshell, lot of confusion, concerns regarding open gaming license as it is going to apply to 1D&D, and revisions that are being made right now from Wizards of the Coast, who create Dungeons & Dragons, obviously. That's an emerging story, and I'd like to get some opinions from some people that actually make it, because I've seen some people that we do know that have had various opinions about the framework and the terminology in it and what's real, what isn't. So I don't want to get into that right now, but if you are wondering about the subject matter, if you were to go on to a social media network of any kind and you were to look for Open D&D, you'll probably get a lot of the more up-to-date information. Or concerns that people have, because that's pretty much where they're doing hashtag OpenDND.
Right.
But I thought that what we would do here is give a little bit of an overview of what the OGL is in terms of Dungeons & Dragons, in case people are not aware. So, briefly, so everyone's aware, the OGL, Open Gaming License, version 1.0, was originally published by Wizards of the Coast in 2000 to license use of portions of 3rd edition content via System Reference Document, the SRD, allowing third-party publishers to produce compatible material. And so this allowed things like, you know, even the mechanics of the game to be utilized as compatibility to the game itself. So this is where you get the rise of a lot of third-party publishers, like a Cobalt Press, for instance, or any of those, or a lot of people that we've had on the show who have made modules for the game. The idea was very popular, as we know. One of the biggest things that came out of it was Paizo creating Pathfinder, which still uses like the modified versions of 3 or 3.5 that was able to come off of that OGL. June 2008, 4th edition had a new, more restrictive though, but royalty-free license, which they called the Game System License, available for third-party developers to publish products compatible with 4th edition, but the GSL is incompatible with previous OGL. This might have been one of the reasons why 4th wasn't such a big thing. I don't know. Did you ever play 4th edition?
I didn't. I still haven't looked at 4th edition at all.
Yes. However, by its own terms, the OGL is irrevocable and remains in widespread use. Okay, that's Wikipedia. We'll see how well that holds up. Thank you. Thank you for that. We'll see about that. More on that later. So by 5th edition, though, 2016, it is weird to think that 5th edition has been out since 2016, but here we are. They released 5th edition SRD, which was under version 1.8 of the OGL, marking a return to the open gaming format. So now we're back. Additionally, content creators can access an additional license option by publishing through the Dungeon Masters Guild storefront. This license goes a step further by allowing individuals and third parties to create and sell content based on...
What did I hit?
Alex
don't know what button I just hit.
You hit the button that makes you disappear.
Apparently.
This license goes a step further by allowing individuals and third-party publishers to create and sell content based on specific Wizards of the Coast intellectual properties, like Forgotten Realms, or Ravencroft, Eberron, and even the Magic the Gathering planes. And they are allowed to set their own prices. However, Wizards of the Coast and One Bookshelf take a 50% cut of the profits, of the proceeds. Now, of course, that's specifically under the DM Guild. So there is that. Now, you have made note several times on the show, though, that game mechanics themselves are not something that you can, like, copyright.
Not really.
It's
I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before on the old show, and people have brought it up before. Again, when people are like, "Oh, people are going to steal my game idea," it's like, no, people are not going to steal your game idea, and you can't copyright mechanics. You can pretty much full send steal mechanics, borrow them, and use them.
Yeah, repurpose them.
Yes.
Recycle. Maybe that's what we should call them. Recycling game mechanics. The other thing to be aware of, too, is that most of the time when we're talking about, like, third-party content that might be in relation, it has a lot to do with the actual world building or terminology, the monsters, the words that are used, that have, like, an attachment to lore and artwork and, you know, storylines and world building. So a lot of times when you're making, like, third-party content for Dungeons and Dragons, if you're starting to talk about displacer beasts, for instance, or beholders or something in your content, those are terms that are specific to a world. And so sometimes you will see people try to, like, work around that by calling them different things if you're creating a different product. So that's sort of like what the open gaming license is, and it was there to encourage third-party content for the most part.
It may be what the open gaming license was. We'll see what it's about to become, I guess.
Right. There's no telling if this is going to continue on, because we are getting the idea that it might actually be changing pretty dramatically. I will, however, read one thing that they said in relation to this, which was the move to actually create the open gaming license back under 3rd edition was spearheaded by Ryan Dancy. And Dancy, in case you're wondering, was vice president in charge of Dungeons and Dragons at Wizards of the Coast. And he said that I think there's a very, very strong business case that can be made for the idea of embracing the ideas at the heart of the open source movement and finding a place for them in gaming. One of my fundamental arguments is that by pursuing the open gaming concept, Wizards can establish a clear policy on what it will and will not allow people to do with its copyrighted materials. Just that alone should spur a huge surge in independent content creation that will feed into the D&D network. I mean, he wasn't wrong. There was definitely a lot of content that came out from third-party developers. I think that all you really have to do is look on any place that sells RPG content, and you will see a lot of open source stuff that came out for Dungeons & Dragons specifically. There's a case to be made that one of the reasons why D&D is still popular today has a lot to do with the OGL and with third-party content. Is that a fair assessment in your...
Yeah, again, Critical Role and other streams and other third-party content have played a huge part in the resurgence of D&D.
Right, and if you're talking about, like, a Critical Role, which actually utilizes Dungeons & Dragons and plays it as a live stream, if you're talking about podcasts like Adventure Zone that originally started out playing Dungeons & Dragons, that really spurred on a new generation of interest in it following 5th edition's launch, it's kind of hard to say that those didn't have an impact on the number of people that are playing now, because there was a portion of time where you just didn't hear about D&D so much. There was a big surge back in like the 70s and 80s, and then I don't know, was it like the 90s? I keep feeling like around the 90s. I
don't know.
During the 90s, I didn't hear like much of anything about it. There was like the Satanic Panic in the 80s, and then there was like this lull for a while, and then. But the time that I really started to see it become more of a mainstream was really after 5th edition, and seeing it being streamed, podcasts being put up on it, and a lot of actual discussion being done about it. And part of that was indeed third-party content. I've played in games online that were based on third-party content for D&D. That's stuff that is essentially at risk if something were to happen to change the framework of open gaming license. We will probably have more information about that. We're gonna want to talk to a few people about it, and maybe some of the folks that are involved will have more information, and some of the third party.
Get to read it ourselves. I don't have time for that.
Maybe we will get to read it ourselves, because as we went to record this episode, we saw some new stuff coming out where people were giving the actual text, or at least what we think is. Yes.
Leaked, alleged text.
Which may be draft material, and we don't necessarily know if it's going to be the final agreement, which again is the reason why we're not going into it right now. But as that develops, and maybe when we get some people that will be able to clarify it better for us, we will talk about it further on the show. But I thought it would just be useful to tell anybody who's not familiar with the Open Gaming License exactly what it is and maybe what's on the line if things change in the new system.
Yeah.
So, if you have any concerns or information that you'd like to share, the best to your ability, please make sure to leave it in the comments, and we'll be interested to see what you think and your take on the situation.
Or if you don't want to put it in the comments, leave us an email. Tell us to make it anonymous.
Yeah, if you don't want any of your comments to be out there, or you want to be anonymous, but you want to tip us off to something that we might want to discuss further on the show at some point, you can send us an email. It's totalpebblenokdown@gmail.com. Okay, so, last but not least, Alex.
Least but least.
It is that time of year.
It is the beginning of the year.
It is the beginning of the year. And because of that, we look back on the old year and we play Save, Bury, Reboot.
We die and fires get born of fire.
That's not really what happens during Save, Bury, Reboot. I'm sorry.
I tried. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, too. Anyway, yeah, we're going to play Save, Bury, Reboot. And for those of you who don't know how Save, Bury, Reboot works, it's actually pretty simple. We take some games, and we decide which one we are going to save as it is in perpetuity throughout the universe, which one we are going to bury in the desert along with E.T., and which one we would like to see a reboot of, because it seemed like a good idea, but it was not executed very well as an idea. So, the way we're framing it, just to make it real easy on us today, and boy, I like when we make it easy on ourselves, is we're talking specifically about games we have played this year. It doesn't have to be a game that came out this year, but games that we played this year. So, that being said, I usually like to start with saves. And I suppose I could go first. And what do I want?
Sure.
What do I want to save this year? What do I
Probably
want
Coral Island.
No. If anything, that would probably end up in my reboot category, just because it's not really complete yet. It's not there.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm gonna do it, and I'm just gonna say that my save is just gonna be Vampire Survivors. And the reason I'm gonna say Vampire Survivors is I don't know how they would ever make a reboot or a better version of it. It just kind of is the way it was supposed to be, in the most pristine form up at the front. The general idea that they had here was just straight up one mechanic: you move. That's it. It's as simple a concept as anything. It's like the Go or chess of like a video game, where it's like you just don't need to refine that. It's a pretty simple, straightforward group of rules, and then you just have this like non-stop jackpot machine of constant upgrades and variables that make every run change continuously. I was fascinated to find out, too, little tidbit, that the person who actually like made the game had previously worked in like casinos making the games. And I'm like, that makes perfect sense. Apparently that's why they came up with the idea. But yeah, I find myself go back to that occasionally, play through a little bit, unlock some new stuff, get new characters, combine different skills together, and yeah, I don't see there's really no notes. Vampire Survivor ended up being everyone's surprise hit for the year, and I think I'm good with that.
Oh,
absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So now it would be the time that you talk.
Oh, great. I guess for 2022, I would save, and it didn't come out in 2022 either. It's been out for a few years now. But I would probably say the game I would save is No Man's Sky.
Okay.
Not only was it one of the games I played the most of in 2022, I think I played 19% of my playtime on Steam is 2022 is my top played game of the year.
Yes.
But they consistently are still doing updates, fairly large updates, and the expeditions. It's not a perfect game, obviously. It still has some stuff here and there that's getting worked out and ironed out, and they're still making it a better game and improving it as they go on, which is fantastic.
Sure.
And since none of the updates have been things you pay for, it's really nice that they're still doing that.
Yes.
Since their launch was so problematic, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas say Cyberpunk already has, I believe, DLC coming out.
Yes.
No Man's Sky is like, yeah, we're still just gonna update this for free.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there are times I just kind of go back to it and just want to, either explore space or build a base or do stuff with the creatures or just kill some sentinels, Sure. So it's one of those things where you can just kind of hop back in and be like, all right, what am I doing? Where am I going?
Yeah, exactly.
Or if you want to take part in the expeditions, which are like seasons for that, if you've tried that.
No.
You have goals and you have a set period of time to do it, and they have different themes. I think it's great. I think it's obviously a sleeper hit now because it took so long to get it to the point where it's like really good. But I would definitely I would save that. I think I'll play it again at some point. I haven't in a little while, but
yeah, I mean, No Man's Sky is just one of those interesting things where it went from being this very maligned game for reasons that were valid, to being one of those surprisingly lauded games for the fact that they kept going back and constantly building upon it. And I think that deserves credit. I don't think that anyone's disparaging it for Hello Games actually went and did the work. Yeah. And as all free updates too, so I think they wanted to have a redemption story. They got the redemption story. So, all right. So let's do Reboot, because berries are usually good for the end. Reboot. What do I want to do for a reboot?
You're rebooting it.
Yeah, what am I gonna reboot? I don't want to do one that just came out this year. I'd like to do something that's a little bit older. I'm gonna say Grim Dawn. We were just talking about Grim Dawn. I think that Grim Dawn has a really interesting world. I think that it when I first got into Grim Dawn, like, I was like, oh, this is cool. This is like a hack and slash action RPG, top down view, whole deal, but it is kind of like dirty and everything's on fire, and there's monsters coming out of all sorts of places, and I'm using my guns and I'm shooting things left and right. It's really neat. It's really neat. But it also becomes kind of repetitive and frustrating pretty quickly when you start to get into these areas where you're like, I got to figure out ways to like deal with the fact that like everything's a melee combatant when I'm a ranged person. That seemed to be one of the biggest problems here. And just, they'll put you in very tight spaces with long range capabilities. And I found that really odd. Like, it felt like the game was specifically trying to get me to build in a certain way with certain things by the framework.
Just some of the frameworks were a bit...
Yeah.
I agree. Like, the constellations, a bit overwhelming. Like, neat in concept, but also, like, trying to find out where you want to go with it. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, the map also could be a little difficult to traverse. It was a little tricky to figure out, like, as certain places open up because you get enough resources, you keep wondering, am I supposed to actually go this way yet? Until you run into enemies that seem like you definitely shouldn't have done that. And
I definitely had a point in time where I didn't know where the heck I was supposed to be going.
Yeah.
Like, the direction, the story was kind of meh.
Yeah. It can be. It definitely can be. I was more taken by the gameplay of it, but I did find that guns with like the rolling and dodging of trying to get out of melee is not really all that fun. I've seen that in a lot of games where they kind of do the action RPGs thing with the guns, and it never seems to work out well for me. It was one of the weaker points of like a Remnant when it was Borderlands, and they constantly gave you like those wormhole threshers that would just make you go right up next to them, but you're built to, continually like shuffle out of the way, run and gun it. Those things don't really work for me. So I guess that if I were to reboot Grim Dawn, I'd probably want to have something a little bit more streamlined, better tracking, so that I could get from point 1 to point 2. Maybe a little bit better defined in the different kinds of classes that you can take, like why I would want to utilize them, and just maybe a better open world sort of map for me to explore, where I don't get tied down on the terrain. It always felt like I was taking way too long to get from point A to point B, and there were a long span of time between that from checkpoints. So yeah, Grim Dawn had a lot of interesting things going on for it, but not enough to hold my attention past like 5 or 6 hours. And that's unfortunate, because I felt like it had a lot of interesting stuff going on. Just I couldn't get into it.
I played quite a bit of it, but the story was boring. It didn't connect to me, and I didn't really care about it, so I stopped engaging.
Yeah. Honorable mention, I think, also goes to Titan Quest. I played the two of them at the same time, and they're both ARPGs. And I think Titan Quest suffers from, like, that's more melee-focused. But even so, they give you this promise of, being in ancient Greece and fighting the gods, and you don't do a lot of that. Yeah, and it gets pretty hectic pretty quickly. But anyway, I'd like to see reboots of those. I'd like to see more Diablo-style games, to kind of take it back around to our first segment, that do something unique and different and don't feel quite as derivative of the main game itself. So that would be my reboot. Did you have one?
Yeah, I think if I were to reboot a game, again, not a game that came out last year, but I did play some of it last year, I would probably say EVE Online.
Okay, yeah, EVE Online is one of those games that feels too large for me to even start to deal with.
There's a lot. I feel like it's definitely dated at this point, because it did come out, 20 years ago, maybe?
Yeah.
And, it's updated a lot since then, but I don't think it's updated in the ways that it needs to.
Okay.
It still operates functionally with contextual menus, drop downs, and just a lot of wonky ways that it works.
Okay.
Some of it's cool, obviously, and I want to like it. Being a space sim that you can do pretty much a lot in, I enjoy that, but just a lot of the ways the systems are built out and you operate them aren't intuitive or are just not really engaging in a meaningful way.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, because I like the concept or the promise of EVE Online, but I guess I felt like it looked like it was going to be a slow burn, to the point that it would burn so slowly that I'd get bored.
Yeah, it's a slog.
It is a slog. There was another game too, I don't know if you ever played, but Star Trek Online kind of had the big, massive multiplayer sort of game world, but it was also a space game. That I feel moves a little bit faster, but then again, we were talking about No Man's Sky a second ago.
Yeah.
And No Man's Sky is this gigantic universe too, but it always feels like there's stuff to do. And it moves fast.
even if it feels like you're doing the same thing, you actually feel like you're doing something, because you're going from system to system, leaving a trail of explored places that you feel like you've explored, because, a lot of the time you are the first person to have set foot on this planet and catalog that system.
Yeah. It's an interesting concept. I would have liked to get into it, but I just know that's going to be a time suck for me, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get on to Barry. This is a tough one for me, though, because there's so many that I want to bury. There's just so many. I'm working on my every game I play from 2022 list, and it feels like half my list is the scrap bin list, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. While you do this, I have to look at my Steam replay.
Oh yeah, because you've probably see, the thing is, I have so many different places I play games that I can't figure them all out. I would normally just say Diablo Immortal just as a layup, because I definitely did not like that game. There were some others that would probably be spicier takes, but I'm not going to get into them right now. There was, however, one game that came out toward the beginning of the year, and I played it more recently, and I realized that there's basically no redeeming value to it. So I'll use that, and it's called Shredders. And Shredders is a snowboarding game.
Oh, okay, I guess that's fair. You do shred. Yeah, I'm looking at this because I played 49 games last year. So.
Oh, yes, yeah. Go take a gander there. I should have done that for my Steam, because actually Shredders I played on Xbox. But so here's the thing: I like extreme sports games. I know that might not seem apparent when you look at me, but SSX, Tony Hawk, great stuff. Love them. have always been a fan of those series. Shredders is like if you took everything that was good about SSX and you got rid of that. You just get rid of all of the fun stuff, and then you say just put your generic, snowboarder on a hill. You complicate the controls a little bit, make it really difficult for people to, figure out the basic layout of grinding a rail or something like that. Make them do it over and over again without being able to get out of the tutorial, and then just have the laziest storyline cutscenes. Character. I swear when I started this game, there's like the text that's on the screen about like, hey, this snowboarder is gonna be a YouTube star. What's up, YouTube? And the voice acting, I think that they recorded it on a cell phone or something. And I don't know what happened. But none of it made any sense to me. And I was so, I felt sad because when I was playing it, I was like, this is worse than the SSX game that got released like 7 years ago. And it doesn't even look as good. It's just, so that's one of those cases where there's just nothing redeeming to it that I could ever recommend. And there are way better games that are in the same genre that do far more. And all you're really doing in the game is doing, your basic, straightforward snowboarding down a hill that you have to, hit specific goals for every single time. If you go to an SSX or anything like that, they really, make pronounced mountains and, actual features of going through ice caves and stuff. And it's like, it feels much more epic, and there's a soundtrack to it. There's something really to it. In this, it's just blaring at you nonstop, and it's actually more annoying than anything else. So I'd like to get rid of Shredders, please. Make it go away. Now. So there's that. Anyway. Alex, have you looked through your Steam?
I did.
Perfect.
And I think the game I want to bury is going to be a hot take.
Great. What are we burying?
But it's a free game, so I didn't pay for it at least.
Good.
But I would like to forever bury in the ground Ark Survival Evolved.
That does not surprise me.
I tried playing it.
Oh, I know.
Didn't like it.
Yeah.
It was barely any tutorial. It didn't, I think we talked about this a bit.
Yeah.
There was no tutorial. It didn't make a lot of sense. It was harder than it needed to be, and I understand that's the fucking point. But also, seriously?
Yeah.
The maps were strange. The dinosaurs were lots. You died easily. You walked in water and got eaten by piranhas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I didn't even touch the water when I tried playing Ark. I was
I
just know that that's going to be a bad time.
Yeah, it was just this is a survival game to make you hate yourself. And it's I'm already iffy on a lot of games that are just survival games for survival's sake. But okay.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs, I guess, are cool. Survival games can be interesting, but punishing is not what I want when I play games, so...
Yeah. There's a segment that I'm hoping we do in the next couple episodes that's going to be great games that we didn't like, where we just get to do hot takes on popular stuff. But I don't know if Ark would even really be considered great in a lot of people's minds. Maybe for survival fans, possibly. I know that there's a few other games, Conan Exiles was in that same genre. And I could get rid of that in a heartbeat, but I know that there are some people that will never stop playing it. So I think it takes a very specific kind of person to play something like an Ark. And it's not you, and it's not me. So it's not us. But okay, so we're gonna bury Ark. Actually, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Because Ark has all the dinosaurs, and we just buried the dinosaurs.
Yeah, I'm trying to get those fossil fuels.
Exactly. If we bury them in Ark, we get more petroleum. That's how it works. So, hey, we're saving the energy economy. We're doing our part by burying Ark. Think of all of the energy we saved by not playing Ark. Alright. For anyone listening out there, what was your Save, Bury, and Reboot games for the year? I'd be interested to know what you played and how you liked it. Or apparently didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, Alex, first show of the new year in the bag.
Yay, let's bury the bag.
Let's bury the bag, yeah. We're back from break and we're back on our bowl, so that's good. Alex, if anyone was interested in following along with us as 2023 progresses, where could they find us on the internet?
If you want to find us all of 2023, since you can all go back to 2022, no takesies backsies, please go to totalpebbleknockdown.com.
When you get over there, you can find all sorts of fun stuff from our show and other projects that we do. I will plug, while I'm at it, that if you're listening to this fairly recently, there was a Titanium mine that went up because I hate myself, where I went over the entire Assassin's Creed series. I don't know why I did that. I had a little time on my hands, I guess. It's a long one. And anyway, as you can probably imagine. So feel free to check us out over there. You can check us out on Patreon as well. That's how we keep the digital lights on, and you can get full video episodes of the show before they ever release to the public, and you can also get a lot of our other content and special bonus features over there as well. You can follow along with us on social media. I am at Titanium.
I am at EXP Limited, and our show is over at is at Pebble Knockdown.
It's at Pebble Knockdown. That's right, you couldn't make it at Total Pebble Knockdown. Too many letters.
Way too many letters.
Yeah, so it's at Pebble Knockdown. And while you are tooling around on the internet, if you listen to us in podcast form, as I hope many people are, feel free to subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice. We are on every single one of them. I'd be surprised if you know of a podcast app we're not on. I would like to know about it because I don't think it exists. But if you do, let us know. And with that, I think we can finally get on out of here and reboot ourselves for the new year. We get to stick the little pin in the hole.
Just get to pass out and reset yourself.
That's right, yeah. Hey, you know what? When your co-host ends up getting a little glitchy, you just have to poke into the little hole and you reboot them.
Yeah, I like to turn them off.
Poke.
And then just leave them off.
Oh, well, that explains so many of our episodes.
It does.
Yeah. So thank you for listening, and we will see you on the next one, everybody. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye until the future.
But the future is now.
The future is tomorrow.
Oh no, we're almost there. You're listening to us from the future. Ah!